Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to The Ray Taylor Show, where I bring you the reviews on the latest movies and TV shows, as well as classic and foreign films. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and on this podcast, I'll be talking about all things film and television. Whether you're looking for a new show to binge or want to know if that blockbuster is worth the trip to the theater, or just want to hear my thoughts on a classic or foreign film, I've got you covered. So join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new episodes, and let's dive into the world of film and television together. On this episode, I am talking about the movie Air. This came out this year, directed by Ben Affleck. Written by Alex Convery, starring Matt Damon, Jason Bateman, Ben Affleck, and Chris Tucker. The plot summary for the movie Air. This follows the history of shoe salesman Sonny Vaccaro and how he led Nike in its pursuit of the greatest athlete in the history of basketball, a.k.a. Michael Jordan, a.k.a. Air Jordan, a.k.a. the shoe. Spoilers for real life. They got him. Anybody going into this movie who would, one, even have any desire to watch it and not know the outcome of this movie is somebody that is truly living under a rock in the most severe way, and I feel bad, and I feel concerned. And I'm glad that you at least got out from under your rock to go see this movie, to then learn some history that I think everybody would know about one of the best, most notable athletes in the world in history, the groundbreaking shoe deal, one of the most coveted shoes in the shoe world. Anyway. I enjoyed this movie a lot. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I think it suffers from some of the same issues that a musical biopic would suffer from. But in all, I thought it was kind of great. Great telling of this true story. And I would recommend it if the topic at all sounds interesting and if you're looking to have a fun watch. It's a fun movie. And I'm not necessarily even a big fan of one of the actors, which I have been very outspoken about my dislike of Ben Affleck as an actor. I think he's one of the most overrated actors working today. Him and Will Smith, they're kind of in a dead heat. I do, however, like Ben Affleck as a director. Behind the camera, I think he knows. I enjoy the movies that he's made. I don't know if I've seen all of them, but all the ones that I'm aware of that I know he directed, I enjoyed. They don't annoy me as much as seeing him perform as a character in a movie. Although there are definitely some exceptions to my rule, exceptions to my dislike of Ben Affleck. There are a few films that he is an actor in that I don't mind. This movie being one of those exceptions. And I think the character that he plays in this lends itself to the fact that I'm not a big Ben Affleck fan. The character is kind of, at least seemingly, at least how he, maybe it was just my hate of Ben Affleck, that the character seems like Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike, a little annoying kind of a guy. So anyway, I don't know how much of that is an accurate character trait of Phil Knight. How much of that is just my annoyance of Ben Affleck. And also, he wasn't a big part of this movie, which is also good, right? So, all that stuff, good, dealt with, not an issue. I did enjoy the direction, the look of this film. I thought for a film that is mostly people sitting around talking, the things that he did with the camera movements, all of those things, I think it added to the film. So, thankfully this movie wasn't focused on Phil Knight. I think I probably would have not. I'm just based on his portrayal of Phil Knight, would have absolutely hated a 2-hour long movie about that character. Thankfully, it is focused on Matt Damon's character, who is an actor that I absolutely love. There are very few movies of Matt Damon that I don't like. So the complete opposite end of the spectrum as far as preferences. And it's kind of amazing that these two people kind of are best friends and came up together. How one is completely palatable for me and I enjoy watching. The other one is, it's a pain. It's a pain. But focused on Matt Damon, who plays Sonny Vaccaro. And Sonny is a basketball connoisseur, studies basketball, understands the game in a way most people don't. His mission in this movie is to find a professional basketball player to be Nike's their introduction into the basketball space, right? They're trying to enter the basketball shoe market, which they are, this movie sets up and kind of tells you where Nike's at in the industry of shoes and how, they weren't doing so well, especially in the basketball space, which was a very new space for them. And Sonny was kind of one of the key players in trying to find talent because of his knowledge of basketball. And also Sonny, a gambler, right? So his two passions combine in this movie as he makes many bets in an effort to win over Michael Jordan. But more importantly, to win over Dolores Jordan, Michael Jordan's mom, played by Viola Davis, who was amazing as well. Both Matt Damon and Viola Davis are the standouts in this film, although I did really enjoy Chris Tucker, who is another actor that is kind of annoying, kind of grating. His energy in many movies is too much so many times. But I think possibly because the dude is getting older, this toned down older Chris Tucker, I actually really liked him. Not that I didn't like him in previous movies. He's just one of those actors that's like Kevin Hart's kind of a similar way, where it's just like the energy is too much, the voice a little annoying, but toned down. Chris Tucker, loved him in this, right? And so great to see Chris Tucker. Also Jason Bateman, kind of pretty consistently good in everything that he's in. He's great in this. Not a huge character in this. Plays like the head of marketing or whatever. Solid character, solid actor. Good to see him in this. I enjoy Bateman in whatever he's in. There's really one of the few actors that I have any issue with whatsoever. This movie is very 80s. Like, this movie is packed to the gills with 80s everything. So many needle drops from popular music. Like, a lot of music, not only just popular 80s music, but specifically music that was, gained popularity or is only popular because of the films that featured these songs. Like, these are the popular pop culture songs of the time. So many needle drops. So much of the set decoration just filled with 80s stuff. 80s products, 80s news clippings. There's a lot of B-roll showing news events, current events of the time. Like, this movie is doing everything to make sure this is the 80s at every point in this movie. Fashion, the set decorations, the just assortment of things that are around, the music that is played, so much of it 80s, 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 80s. Right? Very high concentration of 80s in this movie. Which I didn't necessarily mind it. Right? Despite it being very noticeable, it wasn't a negative, really. It didn't interfere in any way. And even the look of the film, very grainy, and the kind of the desaturation, just the look of this movie definitely has an 80s feel as well. So all of those things combined is like 80s, 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 right? Made me glad I'm more of a 90s person because the 80s were, it's a very specific vibe in the 80s that, this movie is shoving down your throat. There is, however, the one aspect of this movie that's not 80s is the camera movement. There is a lot of camera movement. Like I said, a lot of this conversations of people having conversations, different locations. How do you make that exciting? There is a momentum, there is an energy, there is a pace to this movie that I enjoy that keeps it going. So despite the fact that it is a bunch of just conversations happening throughout this entire movie, and is almost 2 hours long, it just moves. It moves. And I think the camera movements, the constant camera movements in one way or another kind of helps that happen. Right? But definitely not the only aspect of this really that doesn't have the vibe of the 80s. Definitely has more of the vibe of the early 2000s when the doc style was very popular. Shaky cam, a lot of handheld stuff, a lot of like zooming and playing with the focus points in frame. All of that stuff is in this movie. Tons of camera movements. There's scenes where people are talking in a office or in a conference room, and the camera's just like whipping around them, like circling around them constantly. There's conversations like in a bar where it's like shaky camera. There's like within one scene, you will see the focus go back and forth between the two characters, putting each character in focus at random points while just a single character is talking. Like, not necessarily even the focus being on the person speaking. It is just while somebody is in the middle of a sentence, the focus will go in and out between the characters. Constant movement, kind of shaky as well. All that stuff, right? And again, the high contrast, high consistency, the amount of 80s in this, not a deal breaker. The amount of camera movements, not a deal. Like all of these things, despite being very much high concentration. That was the word I was looking for. Despite the high concentration of these things, I still enjoy. I think it works. I think Ben Affleck made it work, right? And like I said, gives an energy to it because it is like there are definitely moments of excitement because Sonny is gambling in a lot of ways, which I'll get to think specifics moments that I like in spoilers, but I am a fan of Matt Damon, and we get the out-of-shape Matt Damon, which is a very specific type of Matt Damon in this film, which I also appreciate. Anytime like an actor changes their physical appearance for a role, I appreciate that, especially if it's like generally an in-shape guy putting on weight, like Christian Bale in the American Hustle, Matt Damon in this, Tom Hanks in the beginning part of Castaway, right? As opposed to Tom Hanks in the Elvis movie, which is the fat suit, which I generally don't like the fat suit. The only exception to that rule is The Whale with Brendan Fraser. 99% of the time, fat suits are stupid, don't look real, and could have just had that role cast by somebody who's overweight so many times. Just like cast somebody instead of pretending like even when it's good, a lot of the times I'm not a fan. Like The Batman, where you have what's his face, Colin Farrell as the Penguin, which doesn't look like the Penguin. I mean, when you have Danny DeVito playing the Penguin. Anyway, I know I'm getting off topic with air, but I appreciate that Matt Damon just didn't put on a fat suit for this. Not that he even needed to be overweight. He could have been in shape, but it makes him feel more like a schlub, right? He looks like somebody that watches more basketball than plays it. So I appreciate that. Get out of shape, Matt Damon. And you understand and believe Sonny's abilities and his opinions on things. Like, you believe he knows about basketball. You believe the dude is into gambling, right? They set all those things up, right? And you see how his gambling plays into every move his character makes in trying to convince Phil Knight to believe in him, in convincing Dolores Jordan to believe in him, and ultimately convincing Michael Jordan and those who represent him to believe in Nike. Spoilers, the deal goes through, which I'll get to actual spoilers of this, but for those that don't know, Michael Jordan has a shoe with Nike still to this day. You're a very special person that if this was the first time. But a great character, Sonny, played by Matt Damon. I was rooting for him the whole time, right? Which is, kind of something you want for a main character, depending on the movie you're watching. And there are many moments of this film that felt definitely super cheesy. Like, not everything was great. Pulls off a lot of stuff. And I would say the moments in this movie that are cheesy, like the other small criticisms I have, didn't take me out. Definitely made those scenes less. They definitely suffer from similar things that like musical biopics suffer from, right? The things characters say, like, whereas the audience, right, especially if you're familiar with these people and these events, like, we know how, like, seeing how simply things kind of get uncovered and happen, right? It just at times made me just slap, give me the face palm. Like, how well they're able to handle everything else for there to be moments in this movie that just submerges itself in the cheese. It's kind of a bummer, but what are you going to do? It's like something that you see in so many movies based on true events, like biopics of any kind. It's just like, I guess you got to do something, right? You got to have Freddie Mercury just tapping on the piano and just coming up with the melody for Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, that's not how it. Just like he just went home and like sketched up this elaborate drawing for what Queen's logo was going to be. Like, there's moments in so many biopics, musical and otherwise, where it's just like, it's kind of a bummer. A couple cheesy, which I'll get into those in spoilers as well. Let's take a quick break from this episode because I want to talk about, are you looking to add some unique and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe? Look no further than the Many Faces series by Ray Taylor. That's me. These abstract paintings on paper explore the endless possibilities of the human face, capturing unique expressions of emotion, mood, tone, and energy in just a few minimal features. Now you can bring these stunning and thought-provoking pieces into your own space with high-quality prints and t-shirts, featuring designs from the Many Faces series. Or take home a one-of-a-kind original piece for your collection. Don't miss out on this opportunity to add some original and expressive artwork to your home, office, or wardrobe. Head on over to InspiredDisorder.com to browse and purchase original artworks, prints, and t-shirts from the Many Faces series today. And now, back to the show. But also, on the plus side, to get back to the plus side, this movie did tap into kind of that love of inspiration and creativity, right? Because it is, in many ways, an underdog story. Nike, an underdog in this game, whereas Converse and Adidas were more of the big players in that space. So, and Sonny himself, who was kind of heading up this basketball department in Nike, so it's a underdog department in an underdog shoe brand. So layers of underdog. So inspiration, creativity, taking chances, all of those things tapped into that kind of thing that I enjoy seeing in a lot of movies. Right? And also a great way to talk about a story, related to a cultural icon without including them in 99% of the movie. Aside from archival footage of Michael Jordan, aside from the actor who plays him saying maybe 2 lines, maybe a few words in total in this whole thing, right? You never see, anytime you see Michael Jordan, it's from the back. Like this movie that could easily, if done by somebody else, they would have hired somebody that looked, they would have cast somebody that looked kind of like Michael Jordan, who's doing a Michael Jordan impression, right? Like kind of things that Will Smith does in his roles, King Richard being the glaring example that I could think of. And it just not working for me. Granted, he did win Best Actor for that role. Regardless, a different director could have handled this different, could have tried to force in more Michael Jordan into this story because he is like, but instead focusing on Sonny, focusing on Michael Jordan's mom, which it's like clear that she was a pivotal like player in the people that represented him. Like she understood not only what Michael's like potential was, but also understood business, understood negotiations on a level, at least how this movie portrays her. But I can't imagine that being too far from the truth, Viola Davis is great as well. So it's very interesting for this movie to take that chance. And which I loved it. I loved it because we don't see him. If any other director had done it and tried to put Michael Jordan in this, everybody watching it would be constantly pulled out because they're like, that's not Michael Jordan. That dude doesn't look or sound like Michael Jordan at all. But they didn't do that. And all the people that it does focus on, nobody knows what they looked or act like. We don't know what Phil Knight was like. We don't know Sonny. We didn't even know Sonny existed until this movie. Nobody knows what Michael Jordan's mom looks like or acts like. So, you get a lot more freedom. You don't have to worry about people constantly comparing the look and sound and feel of Cotton to the real deal. So I enjoyed that. Right? It worked. And something I noticed while watching this, it really looks like all of these actors are having a fun time. Like in every scene, whether they're like having a conversation on the phone or having a conversation in person, like people are having fun, it seems like. Which just is contagious as somebody watching this movie to see people having fun. I had fun, which I did. I had a lot of fun, but I do want to get into spoilers. I want to talk about some specifics of this movie. So I enjoyed this movie. It's streaming now. I believe I saw it on Amazon Prime. So check it out. It's a good one. If you're looking for a fun, even if you don't know, like even if I spoiled the reality that Michael Jordan is a basketball player and has a shoe with Nike, that this deal went through, if I spoiled that for you, I would still recommend watching it. Because it's not about that. That's not the spoiler. There are spoilers, though, I would say. Just, moments of this movie that wouldn't necessarily spoil, but there are specific details. So I want to talk about spoilers. So from here on out, spoiler warning for Air. Right? This movie, from the start, we know exactly where we are. We are in the 80s. Very blunt force trauma to letting the audience know we are in the 80s. Everything, as I said, high contrast, high I forgot that word again. Horrible. My brain. Slept like 3 hours last night. High saturation. 80s. There is a 1984 montage. What was going on in the 80s? I don't know. Maybe I wasn't even alive. I was 3 years old. What happened in the 80s? You'll find out at the beginning of this movie. You'll see some things that are happening in the 80s. What's going on in the 80s? Got the grainy film look. First song is I Want My MTV, which is kind of confusing because this movie has nothing to do with MTV. I actually thought that this was an MTV production because they're movies that MTV used to produce, which I don't even know if they still do. I don't even know. I wouldn't be surprised if MTV didn't exist anymore. But they're movies that they used to produce back in the day, back in the 2000s, maybe even in the 90s. Would start with that, I Want My MTV song that was popular in the 80s. So I kind of thought it was just like some title card music. But no, it was the theme music that starts out this movie, along with the montage, right? 80s pop culture, music drops, a lot of B-roll, a lot of the decorations, 80s, like a lot. Didn't mind any of that. The setup for Sonny I thought was great, right? Him going from kind of looking like he's scouting some high school basketball, stops off in Vegas, goes to place bets in the sports bar on a Lakers game, and gives this woman like 10 to 15 bets, very specific bets, just rattling off, along with one or two just on the fly. Like, actually, who's playing it? Actually, give me him the under, make the spread. I don't know everything he said. I didn't understand it. But I knew he was betting on a lot of specific things that he sounded and was very, like so confident, right? Like, people that go to their favorite restaurants don't have the confidence and ease at which Matt Damon's character, Sonny, placed all of these bets in Vegas. And, of course, after the game, he goes and collects, like, a wad of cash. So it's like setting up, this dude knows his shit about basketball. It's also setting up, this dude likes to bet, because the next thing he does, he goes over to the craps tables and loses it all, right? The game that's not based on the thing that he's passionate about, throwing dice, which I don't even know how craps works. Of all of the ways to throw money away in a casino, rolling dice, it always, like, whenever you see it in movies, it's just like people throwing dice. Sevens are bad. Maybe snake eyes are bad. I don't really know. It gathers crowds a lot of the times. I don't understand any of it. So the fact that Sonny goes over after making his wad of cash and goes to throw craps and loses, I don't know, a lot of his money, I don't know how much, shows like, okay, he knows about basketball. He's also got a little bit of he enjoys gambling, right? So he does the thing that he's kind of guaranteed money, which is probably not fun for him to gamble on sports, because it's not that you don't have that thrill that you're going to potentially lose, which is, I'm sure, why he went and played craps and then lost it. But it sets up that character just instantly. And in this movie, the gambling, the obsession with basketball, right? He decides to bet it all on Michael Jordan, which I thought that was great as well, right? And there's even the scene where he goes to the Jordan household and makes a bet with Dolores Jordan, predicting, like, she's got these other meetings with these other, with Converse and Adidas. Nike isn't even a consideration. Sonny shows up. I'll bet you. He tells her exactly what they're going to say. He tells her exactly what they're going to wear. Dude's going to be wearing a Rolex. He's going to have so much mousse in his hair, right? He's going to say these things. And this is what you need to ask him, right? This is the question you need to ask him, to where you hear an answer that's going to tell you a lot about what their priorities are, right? Going to Converse. Michael Jordan is going to be one of multiple all-stars that are there. What kind of treatment is Jordan going to get when you have all these other kind of all-stars? Is he even going to get, like, is he just going to get lost in the shuffle? You go to the German company of Adidas. Who's running that company right now? Ask them that. because it's going to be a headache because they're not going to know. And then when you see it all play out, everything that he said, and just seeing her look on her face as she clocks, notices everything that he said. Great moment in this movie, right? Saying the perfect thing when he goes to talk to her. Such a great scene. And then you have the scene when they have the meeting at Nike, right? Because of his predictions, they get the meeting with the Jordans. They show up to Nike. Last minute stuffed. Unpolished. Chris Tucker's character is late. Like, this is compared to all the other things, this is amateur hour going on. It is definitely thrown together. Chris Tucker's character is late, on accident, not on purpose, as opposed to Phil Knight, who is on purpose, in order to make him seem like he's a busy, popular, important CEO. But then when he comes in, which I kind of thought was funny, he overplays his hand. Literally saying what should be implied. I'm a CEO running $1 billion business. I have so many things going on, but I made sure to come here to this important because this is how important this movie. All of the things that were meant to be implied by him just showing up late, he comes in and verbalizes everything, right? All the details that were put in place for this meeting for them to pitch this shoe to Michael Jordan, who has no desire to be with Nike, a shoe that has nothing to do with basketball. Right? A lot is riding on this bet that Sonny made, and everybody is blowing it. Chris Tucker's character showing up late, Phil Knight literally saying all of the things that were supposed to be implied. You have the designer kind of getting lost in his description of his creative process or whatever it is. Then you have Bateman playing this promo video, right? Rob, this first he throws down these a collection of these Sports Illustrated magazines where it's just he pasted Michael Jordan's face on different players from past, very thrown together. He tries saying a couple jokes. They fall flat. Everything is going wrong in this meeting. And then he plays this video, and it's the music he chose is the widest, easy listening, just yacht rock type of song to have play while watching highlights of Michael Jordan, who, if Bateman's character had done the smallest amount of, if the Bateman's character had even just watched this very movie, knowing why Jordan was so into Adidas and why Adidas was so popular in the African American community, he probably would have chosen better music to put under that. Maybe music that Michael Jordan would like, not some white dude yacht rock easy listening while it was so sad. And just seeing the time it takes when he plays that promo video, and you see Matt Damon's character Sonny looking over at Chris Tucker's character, and in their heads they don't say anything, right? The implied nature, they don't have to say everything like Bob Knight did or Phil Knight. The implied, that, in their head they're going, what is going on? Everything is falling apart. Everything is falling. Thankfully the shoe didn't fall apart. But then you have Sonny interrupts it, right? He's I can't take this. I can't imagine it being how painful it was for Sonny, who put all of this together. And every single person in that room is falling on their face. And he does his great speech that also conveniently predicts Michael Jordan's complete career. You're going to be great. People are going to build you up and they're going to tear you down because that's what people do. You're going to do all these things. You're going to fail. You're going to crawl yourself back. You're going to be an icon. You're going to be somebody that can only let people down because they've built you up to be this godlike figure. And you're showing like Michael Jordan through his career as he like decided to quit and then like go play baseball, and how he was like very mediocre at baseball, and then how he kind of came back. So it's, you know, it's great. And of course the music and all the things, very inspirational. But you know, on one hand it's very like, well, we know what happens, obviously. But at the same time, like, Sonny's character knows so much about basketball. He sees small things and understands the potential that those small things indicate, right? Just the whole reason he went for Michael Jordan. Just seeing how calm he was when they were running that play for him to take the last shot in a championship game or whatever, right? It's like this, he sees like, oh, this guy's going to be a star. Look, like he's not nervous. He's completely comfortable. He has no problem taking this last shot. Like, it's the biggest shot of his entire career, of his entire life, and he is the most relaxed and casual, right? And he knows what that means. He knows that the type of mentality it would take for a person to have that kind of comfortability and ease to take such an important shot. And in the same way, Michael Jordan rises to the occasion when everybody else, like, just kind of letting the team ride on his coattails. That was Sonny in this meeting. Great meeting. Enjoyed that. Let's take a quick break right now to talk about, are you a fan of original artwork and live events? Look no further than the Many Faces series by Ray Taylor and the weekly live stream over at youtube.com/inspireddisorder. This ongoing series explores the endless possibilities of the human face through abstract ink paintings on paper, capturing unique expressions of emotion, mood, tone, and energy in just a few minimal features. Join me every Thursday at 4:20 Pacific Time as I paint live. Follow the Many Faces series and discover the endless possibilities of the human face. Don't miss out on this opportunity to be part of the action and own a piece of original artwork by me, Ray Taylor. Head to youtube.com/inspireddisorder every Thursday to catch the live stream, and visit inspireddisorder.com to browse and purchase the Many Faces artwork. And now, let's get back to the show. And even when he gets the call from Dolores, and he has one more negotiation, right? It's this like huge, like just like celebration. Oh, they did it. Like, time goes by, doesn't know, probably not going to happen, right? He's just waiting for the representative to call him and give him the bad news. Gets a call from her, and he's like, well, I respect that you're calling me to give me the bad news. And then she does. She gives him the good news. But that's not all, right? This, like, high that Sonny was feeling in that moment where she called to say, we're going to take the deal. However, we want a percentage. We want royalties. And just, like, to go from that relief of taking the deal only to have it instantly put in jeopardy with these royalties put in place. And Sonny just so desperate to try and make it work. Just trying to make all of this work like it's this house of cards that Sonny has built up. At every point, people have been failing around him, and he has done everything to pull them through. The meeting, the culmination of that, the championship game, but that still wasn't it, right? That wasn't the final game. And just kind of realize that he's not, like, Phil's not going to go for this. The board's not going to go. Like, the industry has never done this. So, of course, it makes sense that Sonny would be like, well, this is not going to happen. What do you mean you want royalties? Nobody does royalties. The fact that you even got this deal is ridiculous. But I also love how Phil, like, kind of just says, fuck it. Right? Like, Sonny infected him, right? Got him to gamble on this thing too. which on some level, considering Phil Knight created Nike from the ground up, there has to be some part of him that has that excitement. There is an excitement that comes from gambling. There is a reason why casinos exist, because it taps into people's brains in a very unhealthy way. But because that gamble, taking risks, is so innately like intoxicating to humans. So of course, Phil Knight, infected, got that, and he was intoxicated, made the gamble. The aspects, those are the things I really did like. Aspects of this I didn't like. There's an amount of overcomplication when it comes to when they go into the designer to make the shoe for Jordan. Everything involving that designer was painful to watch. Painful to watch. So overly complicated, right? To make, like, just to the idea of making a custom shoe for Michael Jordan, it was like, not designing a shoe to be for everybody, design a shoe for one person and mass produce it for, like, it is so painful. Also, the deep, sophisticated concepts, this philosophies, this designer guy's spouting, just the most painful aspect was everything involving that designer. And I don't think it's the designer's fault. He didn't write those lines. And I don't know what the real designer was like. Maybe artists can be weird. But, like, so much of this felt like the most hand-holding for people. Like, the term form over function was thrown out. And people, Matt Damon's character is like, what is form over function? Like, what could possibly that mean, designer guy? And he's got to, like, well, you see, some things are designed for function. So they don't necessarily look good because they're designed, engineered for it to work a specific way. The contrast to that is that when things are generally designed to look good, they don't necessarily function that well. So what do you want to lean into? It's so painful. How does any adult not know what form over function means? And the designer character's wacky. He's skateboarding because he's going through a midlife crisis. Okay. It's like such a weird, like, clear. It had to have been specific things related to the real designer. Had to have been. This guy, bald, has a lisp. I don't even know if that's real. Skateboarding, super, like, out there. Like, maybe done some too much acid at one point. Just a little bit too much. Right? You know, people that are just kind of still in outer space in a lot of ways. Still floating around like, whoa, it's trippy, man. I don't know. And then even, like, and everything's a grand epiphany. Like, when they suggest more red, right? And they'll pay his fine. It's, like, so dramatic. And it's like, yeah, more red, yes. More red. Just every moment of those scenes is the worst aspect of this movie. And even the name, the way he came up with the name Air Jordan, and then how it's like the representative for Jordan said he came up with it, but just like it's just, that is one of those moments where it's like, where it's, you know, the cheesy, effortless creation of this thing, like how Han Solo got his name, to bring it to an example that's not a musical biopic. It's just like this, such an underwhelming way in which these things are manifest. It's just like, it's kind of a bummer. Still had kind of that inspirational tone, overcoming the odds, right? I mean, technically he is making a shoe that is different than shoes that they've made. He has 2 days to make this shoe prototype, something to show, at this meeting, which is the only thing that didn't go bad was the shoe. Just handled in such a cheeseball way. Definitely my most painful time watching this was everything involving the designer. And I feel bad. I feel bad when artists are like portrayed in this way. It's like, oh, come on. Come on. Artists are cooler than that. People aren't that weird all the time. I don't know. Anyway, I really had a lot of fun. Right? A fun movie from Ben Affleck. Great performance from Matt Damon, Viola Davis. Right? So despite this movie being a little painful at times, overall, I had a lot of fun watching it. Right? 90% fun, 10% cheese. And it ends with kind of the iconic Be Like Mike ad jingle, which just a great punch, right? Sometimes I dream that he is me. You gotta see that's how I dream to be. I dream I move, I dream I groove like Mike. I've got to be like Mike, like Mike. Oh, if I could be like Mike, be like Mike, like Mike. Again I try, just need to fly. For just one day if I could be that way. I dream I move, ooh, I dream I groove like Mike. If I could be like Mike, like Mike. If I wanna be like Mike, I wanna be like Mike, like Mike. If I could be like Mike. So great. Enjoyed it. I want to thank you all for tuning into this episode of The Ray Taylor Show. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on air. Breathe it in. Breathe it out. Don't forget to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new movie and TV show reviews. And join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform or over on youtube.com/inspireddisorder if you are watching every one of these episodes that is available on video. Until next time, be like Mike. Jump. It's the shoes. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.